Welcome to this explainer on the economics of data centers. We hear a ton about AI, the latest chips, the craziest new algorithms, but today we're unpacking the physical, literal concrete realities behind this whole boom. We're going to look at the massive fortresses that actually keep the internet running and the absolutely fascinating money flowing behind their walls.
So let's just dive right into this massive paradox. Right now, demand for data centers is completely off the charts. Vacancy in major markets is practically zero. We just saw OpenAI sign a $300 billion with a B dollar deal with Oracle just for compute capacity. Rents are climbing every single quarter. It sounds like an absolute guaranteed gold mine, right? But despite this insatiable demand, data center companies have still gone completely bankrupt, right in the middle of the biggest computing boom in history. How is that even possible?
Well, to figure out this trap, we first need to completely redefine what this business model actually looks like in the real world. Section 1, landlords of the internet, the colocation business.
When you picture a data center, you're probably imagining, Amazon or Google building a massive warehouse just for their own servers. But that's not the business we're looking at today. We're talking about colocation data centers. As an owner here, you aren't actually buying the computers yourself. Your customers pick their own chips, they run their own software. You are basically building an empty, hyper-cooled fortress. Your main gig? Essentially being a heavy-duty infrastructure landlord. You provide the building, the electricity, the cooling, and the backup power. That's it. And there's this great analogy that brilliantly illustrates the reality of this model. You aren't just selling floor space. Think about it. Your tenants might be running hospital records, processing credit card payments, or literally holding up chunks of the internet. A power outage of just a few minutes? Total disaster. So think of it like a fire department. Most days, nothing happens. The trucks just sit there. But the town isn't paying for the truck to drive around. They're paying for the truck to be ready the one day it actually matters. Because of this, you are selling absolute certainty. And let me tell you, building certainty is phenomenally expensive.
Section 2. The true cost of certainty. Building for uptime. Securing this certainty requires astronomical piles of cash years before a single dollar of rent is ever collected.
To really understand why this business can break you, you have to look at the upfront capital. Heading into 2026, the going rate to build just 1 megawatt of capacity has jumped to a staggering $11.3 million. Just a few years ago, that was closer to $7.7 million. So let's play this out. If you want to build a pretty standard 20 megawatt facility, you are staring down a benchmark cost of roughly $226 million just to get the building off the ground.
So how does that massive $226 million budget actually get deployed? Well, it comes down to 4 brutal physical steps. First, you've got to secure land, and not just any land with access to massive amounts of power and fiber optics. Second, you build a heavy-duty shell. We're talking floors strong enough to hold insane amounts of electrical equipment without cracking. Third, you install an entire yard of backup diesel generators and massive batteries. Remember, you're selling certainty, right? So everything has to have a backup. And fourth, you have to implement these intense cooling systems just to pull all the heat out of those dense AI racks. You're spending millions today so that one broken part tomorrow doesn't take down your customer's entire business.
Section 3. Gridlock and power crises. The ultimate bottleneck. Because having the cash to build the physical box doesn't matter at all if you don't have the electricity to power it. Now, check out this projected explosion in power consumption. It's truly staggering. We're looking at U.S. electricity consumption by data centers jumping from roughly 2.5% right now to an estimated 11.8% by 2030. That is more than double the current draw. It proves that in this industry, energy, not computing, is the actual product. You can finish your beautiful $226 million building, test the generators, do the whole shebang, and still have absolutely nothing to sell, just because the utility is late connecting you to the grid.
And this grid stress, it's a very real crisis today. Right now, queues for grid connections can average around 4 entire years. In Europe, the dense concentration of these facilities has caused major cities to hit a literal physical wall. The grid operator near Dublin was forced to pause most new data center connections until 2028 over fears of severe supply shortfalls. Amsterdam has essentially halted new builds completely due to constrained grid capacity and just a lack of physical space. So when you really think about it, the right to pull power from the grid is arguably way more valuable than the land itself. But hey, let's say you succeed. The power finally flows, your tenants move in. They immediately start creating this interdependent ecosystem using something called cross-connects. Basically, these are private network links that let your tenants talk directly to cloud platforms, banks, or phone carriers right inside your building, bypassing the open internet entirely.
It acts a lot like a bustling food court where everyone relies heavily on the foot traffic and the very specific ecosystem that's been built up in that one location. And because of this deeply connected ecosystem, a concept known in the industry as data gravity, customers almost never leave. I mean, think about it. Moving out means relocating incredibly expensive physical hardware, painstakingly rebuilding every single private network link, and risking devastating business outages during the transition. Because the cost and the risk of leaving are just so profoundly high, data centers enjoy these highly predictable 5 to 15-year locked-in revenue streams. It's exactly the kind of unshakable stability that institutional investors absolutely drool over.
Section 4. The hidden bankruptcy trap. Expectation versus reality. Guaranteed lock-in, insatiable AI demand, sky-high rents. It sounds completely invincible. But here's where we finally pull back the curtain.
Consider the massive revenue gap on the exact same 20-megawatt building. In a good year, everything goes perfectly to plan. You have 95% occupancy, you're charging a premium rate of $196 per kilowatt, and you're pulling in nearly $45 million in annual revenue. Beautiful. But in a bad year, maybe construction finishes a little late. One major customer decides to push back their move-in date, you drop to 65% occupancy, and suddenly you're only bringing in $26.5 million. But here is the trap. Your fixed costs, servicing those massive diesel generators, paying property taxes, running 24/7 security, none of that drops by 35% just because your building is a bit emptier. And most importantly, your lender still expects the exact same massive debt payment on the exact same schedule.
And guys, this isn't just theory. Let's look at the real-life timeline of a company called Cyxtera. In 2021, they went public at a $3.4 billion valuation. The business looked incredibly strong. Demand was soaring. But by June 2023, they filed for bankruptcy, completely crushed by their debt. Later that year, their assets were sold off in a fire sale to Brookfield for just $775 million. This timeline proves that you can be completely 100% right about the AI boom, have paying customers who desperately need your space, and still get entirely wiped out by the debt clock ticking in the background while you wait for revenue to stabilize.
The really cruel irony here is actually written right in Brookfield's own paperwork following the acquisition. They valued the physical buildings and the equipment at over $2.3 billion. That is more than triple the fire sale price they paid. The concrete, the copper wire, the generators, they all held immense value because the market was booming. But the equity owners who initially built it just couldn't survive their own debt payments long enough to actually see that payoff.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought. We usually think of the AI revolution in terms of, brilliant algorithms and highly advanced chips. But when you look at the grueling economics of building the physical homes for these computers, it kind of forces a question. Is the most valuable, irreplaceable asset in the modern digital economy not actually the tech itself, but simply the legal right to pull massive amounts of power from a highly constrained grid? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the economics of owning a data center. Keep